What's up, y'all? It's BRELAND, and I am hanging out with Rob on Front Row Live.
What's up, guys? Rob here, Front Row Live Entertainment. I'm hanging out here with BRELAND here in the tour bus.
Yes.
LA Stop, you're about to wrap this amazing tour.
Yeah.
Tonight, you are headlining the Troubadour, such an iconic venue. For you as an artist, knowing the history and walking into a venue like this and just being able to experience and see that history, what does that mean to you?
It's really special, man. Some of those names on the wall, I mean, it's truly like so many legends that have played the Troubadour, and I would love to be one of them.
Yeah.
You know, so this is a really great step in my career. I'm definitely going to soak it in. To be able to sell out the Troubadour, we don't play West Coast super often.
Yeah.
So for people to be showing up for country music and for me in particular, it really does mean a lot.
What is it, or what do you think it is about country music that doesn't come out to the West Coast as much as it does?
I think for a long time it was just very regional.
Mm-hmm.
You know, country music was kind of made by and for people who lived a certain lifestyle from a certain part of the country, but obviously it's expanded quite a bit, and it has really massive global appeal in a way that it hasn't before. I think part of that has to do with the diversification of sounds and also the diversification of artists in this space.
Yeah.
There's really no better, you know, it's like real estate, right? Like country music is on the up. Like you definitely wanna get in on it while you can. And I love seeing artists. Some people may feel differently about this, but I personally love seeing artists from other genres dip their toes into country music and come into this space. Like Beyonce and Post Malone just announced his album, and Lana Del Rey and some of these other artists that we don't traditionally associate with country music, but are fans of the genre and want to be a part of it. I think there's room for everybody.
I feel like I always thought about it as like, if you're a songwriter, you're pretty much like, you understand country music, or because that's what country music really is. It's just elite storytelling. Exactly.
Great songwriting. It's all very clever. It's all very honest.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people are attracted to, and that's why people are starting to convert from all the music that they might have listened to before that didn't include country. They're starting to include country in their listening because I think the songs are really strong.
Now, for you, as far as like the songwriting goes, because you're also mainly a songwriter, also, you know, in your own sense, like, so creating music, like, how did you really learn to create the music that you do, the songs that you do, and kind of be able to create these lyrics, these melodies, these tones that you kind of give us when we're listening to your music?
Yeah, I mean, I started out writing songs for a lot of other artists, and when you're a songwriter professionally, you kind of have to be somewhat of a chameleon. You know, you have to be able to, you know, write for anybody. Right. So if any artist that might need music, I wanted to make sure that I could deliver music that they would want to put out. And so I learned how to write and how to kind of affect my voice in a way to be able to write gospel songs, hip hop songs, R&B songs, dance songs, Afrobeat songs, Latin songs, country songs, you know, and being able to kind of put on different hats creatively and to be able to sink my teeth into a bunch of different sounds, I think is why I have the sound that I do now as an artist, which is really just a celebration of all the genres that I love to write. Separately.
Did you have like a hard time trying to nail the sound or kind of discover who you are as an artist and how you belong in this music world?
Yeah, I mean, when you write songs for other people, the toughest transition to being an artist is figuring out, okay, well, what do I want to say?
Yeah.
Because the whole time you're thinking, okay, well, what do I want to say that I think someone else would want to say? And that's a completely different thing than saying, okay, well, what do I actually want to say? What types of stories do I want to tell? How deep do I want to go? How real do I want to go as far as, you know, telling personal stories in my life, you know, or do I just want to have songs that are going to be fun? Like, do I want to try to chase a hit, or do I want to have something that has a little more substance? And that's something that is I'm still figuring it out, you know, it's hopefully I'll continue to figure it out as I go, but it's part of the evolution is as I'm learning more about myself and having different experiences on the road, traveling, learning more about what I like, what I don't like, what sets me off, what keeps me up at night, what my hopes and dreams are. I want to be able to channel as much of that into the music as possible, especially when it comes to continuing to develop the actual sound, what genres are going to be a part of that mix and how I want to blend them. Creatively, I want to continue to explore all of that. But I definitely think the toughest part of making the transition from being a writer to an artist is just self-discovery, figuring out who I am and what I want to represent.
During that process, when you're having this self-discovery, how did you learn to open up and be very vulnerable, open up about these like true emotions and true feelings, experiences that you've gone through, knowing that there is an audience listening to you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's my favorite part about playing shows. And once I started playing shows, I realized I wanted to be able to be a little bit more vulnerable on the songs, because when I play these shows, like Cross Country, my song Cross Country, which is the title track from my debut album, it's a personal song. You know, it's not a song that anyone else would be able to sing. I literally come on the song like Jersey made, born and raised in the Garden State. My mama prayed, you know, I went to DC, went to ATL, and I'm like telling my actual story,
biography
autobiographically, right? And people really respond to that song live. And so I'm trying to find more ways to tell real stories, and some of the music that I'm getting ready to put out later this year does that to an extent. And I guess to answer your original question, I'm finding that vulnerability, and it's becoming easier for me when I'm actually connecting with the people that are listening to the music. That's what's helped me be able to open up more.
You mentioned Cross Country, and I love the fact that when I'm listening to the song sonically, it gives me this, like, it makes me feel like I have arrived at my destination. That's like what I get with the melody and the sonics that you have on that song. Talk to me a little bit about the creative process of that track, and going from writing the lyrics to adding the melodies and instrumentation. Like, how did you go about it, and how did you create it the way that you did?
Yeah, man. I mean, I had just moved to Nashville literally that week, and I had lived in Atlanta for a few years. I had done a stint in Los Angeles, and I'm from Jersey. I kind of started writing more seriously when I was in college in DC. And people kept asking me how I would categorize the music that I made. And one day I just had an epiphany, and I was like, cross country. It's a cross between country and all of these other genres, and also it's different places across the country that I've learned some of these lessons as a songwriter, and also just as a creative and as a person. So I came up with that title. I knew I wanted to make that the title of my album. I knew I wanted to have a song called Cross Country. And then with that, I was like, okay, well, with Cross Country, it's also like, cross country running, like track. And so I was like, it would be great if I had a song that was like, cross country, I'm running to try to find where I'm going, but then also kind of play into the geographical aspect of it, of different places that I've lived and lessons that I've learned in those places. And so it really was this like multi-layered thing where I'm like, okay, this is kind of the title of what it is that I'm doing, but it's a play on words with cross country running, and it's also literally telling a story about where I've been and where I'm going. And I thought it was a clever way to spin it. I wrote it with a good buddy of mine, and Will Gittins, who I've written with for years.
Doing a lot of stuff with,
and so to be able to have a song like that and for people to respond to it, I always want to I love being able to go into sessions knowing, okay, hey, I've got a title and I think this could be something, and then it gets executed and it turns out to be what I want. And I thought that was a really great example of it.
Now, coming from being a songwriter and then now being able to collaborate with other songwriters, you had the opportunity to collaborate with someone like Julian Bunetta, who is like an incredible songwriter. A lot of people know him from One Direction, obviously. But what is that, what is that chemistry like when you sit down with such an iconic songwriter that maybe you also looked up to? And, how was that chemistry when you started to collaborate together?
Yeah, I mean, Julian's great. We did my song Praise the Lord together. I brought him in as co-production because I knew I wanted to get Thomas Rhett on the song. And I felt like, okay, Julian knows Thomas and they work together pretty closely. So I reached out to him and asked if he could pass it along and if he had any thoughts on what to add. So he added some production elements and sent it to Thomas. Thomas loved it, and that kind of got our relationship going.
That's cool.
But anytime I'm in with someone like a Julian who has made a bunch of hits, obviously there is some pressure to want to make a hit. But what I've learned is that I have the same skill set as all of these people, and we learn from each other. So there are things that I learn from some of these hit songwriters in terms of how they approach things, but they also learn things from me, and it's an exchange. So I try not to think too much about resume and how much they've accomplished, but I think about it of like, what can we make today that whether it's a big hit or not, that we'll be able to walk out of here and feel really proud of. And I've tried to take the business out of the creative.
Okay.
Because the more you go into a room thinking, oh, we have to try to make a hit, we got to try to make hits, you're never going to really make anything that's authentic. And I think sometimes the true hits come from being creatively comfortable, being creatively adventurous, and being willing to try new things in the room. And sometimes that happens when you're in with big writers, and sometimes that happens with people where it might be one of their first ever cuts and they're just ready to explore new sounds. But regardless, I come into everything creatively with pure intentions of like, let's just try to make the best song possible, whether it's for me or for someone else, and let it turn into what it's supposed to.
How do you feel that during this writing process he helped you kind of step out of that comfort zone?
Julian?
Yeah. Or even any of the other writers that were on.
Yeah, I mean, with a song like Praise the Lord, I originally did it with two of my buddies, Jacob Durrett and Rocky Block, who are over at Big Loud. And Rocky is just brilliant. He's got a bunch of hits now, a few number ones at country radio, and he's just such a multifaceted writer. And he had the title, Praise the Lord. Jacob Durrett had the initial lick, don't. He was like, it's a little churchy. I feel like you could probably pull that off. And Rocky grew up playing in black churches in Nashville, and he's a white dude, but he's got that soul in him, and he grew up playing guitar and bass at different churches in town. So we all kind of found common ground on that. And then once the song was there and we realized that Thomas would be a good fit, that's really when we sent it over to Julian. So he wasn't there day one, but he understood the song. He agreed that it would be a good fit for Thomas. Now, I have also written with Julian in the past, on a couple other songs that haven't come out yet. But anytime I'm in with guys like that from the LA world, I think it's always cool to approach country music with pop sensibilities, because that is how you get some of those really catchy melodies, and making sure that the concept is accessible. But Nashville has that on lock now too, and there are so many LA writers that have moved out to Nashville. People like Steph Jones, who's written a bunch of the Sabrina Carpenter stuff. She's a co-writer on the song that I have coming out with Shania on the Twister soundtrack.
That's awesome.
So she's a hit songwriter in the pop world and in the R&B world and in the hip hop world too. But she understands country music, and she's in Nashville, and we're happy to have her. Yeah.
Speaking of that upcoming song, you were on tour with Shania Twain as well. For 2023.
Yep.
So going from that experience to being able to have a track together. What was that process like, and how did you feel that that helped you become maybe one step higher or elevated into your career?
Yeah, I mean, the Shania tour was fantastic. It was a great opportunity. Shout out to Shania and her whole team. They really embraced us in a way that you can't always expect or even ask for as an opener. We did a handful of dates here in the States, got to play the first ever show at Geodis Park in Nashville. We played Madison Square Garden, a couple other iconic venues. And we had so much fun that she ended up bringing me back on the road to do the European UK leg of her tour. And so we got to play 2 nights sold out at the O2, a bunch of arenas in Glasgow and Dublin and some amazing cities out that way that was a really formative experience for me. Obviously, Shania is a legend. She's one of the artists that helped get me into country music. Just sonically, I just really love what she's done, and I really love her first 3 albums. I listen to all the time, and I draw a lot of inspiration from. So to be able to be on tour with her was fantastic, and we hit it off, and it just kind of felt like we needed some music together as well. So I did hop on a song of hers, a remix of her song Inhale Exhale on her last album. But it wasn't a single or anything like that. So for us to be able to have a song together as a part of this one of a kind project with the Twister soundtrack, it's an honor, and she was a part of the original Twisters film back in the 90s. So it's a full circle moment for her, and I'm excited.
And
for
you as well.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. Now, recently you celebrated your 4th anniversary of the BRELAND EP.
Yeah.
And I want to know like what kind of impact that EP had for you in your career, and how do you feel that it allowed you to kind of open even more doors like to where you're at today?
Yeah, I mean, it was the first body of work that I've ever put out as an artist, and I was still in my infancy of figuring out what type of music I wanted to make, and coming off of a debut single like My Truck, which obviously had massive success on TikTok and with young people, but it really did bridge the gap between hip hop and country, and there wasn't a whole lot of other music kind of setting a blueprint for how to build a career off of a song like that,
Right.
and then throw into the mix. Now we've got and so I'm trying to put this EP together, from my parents' house in New Jersey. And, a couple of these songs, like In the Woods, I literally recorded from my childhood bedroom in New Jersey. And so it was a really special project because there was so much that I didn't know about what I thought my career was going to look like, what I wanted my career to sound like. My music to sound like, and also just literally whether we were ever going to be able to get back outside. And so the music was coming from a really unique place. And so I will always remember that project really fondly, just based on how it came together and it being such an exciting time in my life of just exploring artistry for the first time.
Yeah.
And I think that project really set the groundwork for the Cross Country album and some of the music that I'm working on now, because there were a lot of people that gravitated to songs like Hot Sauce, which we still play in our sets on tour, because we started taking it out of our set just thinking, okay, we got a bunch more music and people love it, and have requested that we continue to play it. So that project has been really, really foundational for me.
That's awesome. And going back to Cross Country, my guilty pleasure is listening to you and Britney Spencer collaborating together, because your voices mash so beautifully together.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about whenever you get into a studio with a female vocalist, how do you two, or specifically with this song, Guilty Pleasure, like how did you two collaborate in a way that both of these voices just sounded like they belonged together?
Yeah, I mean, with Britney, we've been friends for years, and anytime I get to collaborate with people that I have pre-existing relationships with, that's always ideal, because it takes a lot of the industry stuff out of it, where I'm like, we actually are friends and we hang out and we drink together and just have a real relationship and friendship where we can talk about real life stuff. That once the music comes in, it's super organic and authentic. And with that song, I wrote that song with Sasha Sloan, who
oh my gosh, I love Sasha.
She's a great artist.
So incredible.
Initially, I was hoping that I'll be able to keep Sasha on it, but she was in a transitional time in her career and thought it would be better if we found another feature. And from there, I was like, man, Britney's got such a great voice.
Yeah.
We've written together, but we hadn't really found anything that we landed on, and I sent her Guilty Pleasure and was like, what do you think of this? And she loved it. So for the deluxe of my debut album, I was like, man, it would be great to have a couple features on this and people that I really genuinely love in real life, and Britney is definitely one of those people. So it's an honor to have her on that song, and congrats to her on all the success that she's had since.
Yeah. Hopefully on your next material, Sasha could jump on board, because I would love to hear that.
Sasha is a great artist, great writer, and such a pure tone. So I'm sure we'll figure something out.
Now, what is the new era of BRELAND? What can fans look forward to as you're getting ready to prep new music?
Yeah. It's I would say that nothing that I'm doing coming up is like a major departure from what they've heard, but just continuing to elevate as a vocalist, continuing to elevate as a writer, wanting to be able to tell more real stories, and also wanting to play around with some more intersections of genres that I haven't hit yet.
Yeah.
And some exciting collabs on the way as well. So I think if you've liked any of my stuff in the past, I think you'll still love the new music. I think you may love it even more. And if you didn't like any of my music before, I think that you may like some of this new music. So if you're like, man, that Cross Country album didn't really hit to me, we might have something for you.
They were listening to the wrong album.
They're listening to the wrong album. I don't know why you wouldn't like that project, but if you didn't, just know that I do have some new music that I'm really proud of, and I think people will respond really favorably to.
Now, I got to give you congratulations, because breaking news right now, a K-pop album just went platinum.
Yeah.
And you wrote a song on it, Night Away.
Yeah.
Which is from Taemin from Shiny.
Yeah.
Do you remember going back into that writing session? Like, did you actively know that you were writing for a K-pop track, or did you just write something in it?
Yeah, it was just a song that we wrote. It was one that I really liked, but it just didn't really fit my sound too much. But it's a catchy tune, and when I found out that they were pitching it over in the K-pop world, I was like, man, that's amazing. I would love to, love to send that song over that way. And I just feel like music is so global that the more spaces that I can create
Mm-hmm.
and have my music heard, I'm all here for it. So the K-pop system is incredible. The way that they build these artists and their brands and the amount of support that these artists have, even here in America,
Yeah.
is a beautiful thing to watch. I'm going out to Korea in a couple weeks
Oh man.
to go work on some more records, and hopefully we'll come back with even more platinum records in the K-pop world and beyond.
That's amazing. How would you say that writing for K-pop specifically has kind of elevated your writing process, or just the way you think about how to write your music now?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the K-pop world, they're looking at a lot of, they really just want hit songs.
Yeah.
And they're gonna translate and interpret kind of in their own way. But I've had a couple cuts with artists in that world, and it's always really dope to see how people respond to the music. But I try to approach it the same way I would anything else, which
Yeah.
is just like, let's try to make a great song. And you know, I think great music is, you know, music is the universal language, and great music, you feel a great song whether you understand what's being said or not, you know. And so it's cool to see how they translated that song. I don't speak a lick of Korean.
Not yet.
Not yet. But you know what, my roommate in college is Korean, and his parents are immigrants, and he spent some time out that way. So
Yeah.
before I go out there, I'll definitely be giving him a call and
That's
seeing if
awesome.
there's anything that he can connect me to.
That's awesome. Well, I'm super excited for you. I'm super excited to hear what's next from you. Throughout all of this, you've been super busy with your music, also busy behind the scenes writing for other artists.
Yeah.
But I want to know, like, leading up to today, like, what has been the biggest challenge to get to where you're at now?
I think the biggest challenge is just, you know, the music industry is tough.
Mm-hmm.
Things don't always go the way that you want. You know, you might have big dreams of, oh, this song would be great, and you know, you have to go back and forth with the label. You got to go back and forth with your agents. You know, it is a collaborative process, and there are a lot of people on my team whose opinions are all incredibly valid. But I think the toughest part for me has been just figuring out who I am. And it's something that I think I have a much clearer idea of now than I did a few years ago. And the better I understand myself, the better I'm able to actually lead my team to get us all where we want to go. And so it's been some personal discovery. This year I started therapy earlier this year. Been doing some real work on myself and kind of healing some things within myself that I think may have been holding me back.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited for this next chapter, because I do have a much clearer vision for what I want from my career and what I want my career to represent, and who I am in the process of it all. And I think that'll lead to some great music being made, and also some great opportunities around how we put that music out, and you know, what we do from there. So I think the toughest thing as an artist is like not getting so caught up in all of the things that happen in the industry, and I got to play this show, and then I got to go do this, and then I got to go do this. It could be really easy to forget to, you know, I'm a person first. And until I can check that box of making sure that I'm good emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, and interpersonally, once I check all of those boxes, which I'm checking now really for the first time, it's really hard to move on the career front, because you have to make sure you're solid. So I'm in a really good spot now, and I imagine that we'll start to see a lot more movement over the next couple of years now that I'm in a position to do it.
Amazing. Definitely keep yourself first at all times.
Thank you, man.
Thanks so much for hanging out with me. You guys be sure to check out BRELAND. Right now, Cross Country album, the deluxe version, is out now. So check it out if you haven't already. And thanks so much for hanging out with me, man.
Great chatting with you,
Appreciate
brother.
that. Thank you.
Easy.